Good evening, and welcome to the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee. I'm Alice Arena. I'm the chair of the committee, and I welcome you tonight to our program, Women Lead the Way. I'd like to make a few thank yous here. The first one is to our audience for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoy the program. I'd also like to thank our subcommittee, Chair Nina Davis-Millis, and members Tim Cronin, Michael Grafton, Kurt Grenadier, and Lynn Howard. I'd also like to thank Chris Matthews for his technical support on this live stream. And I would like to introduce, I hope, Representative Jamie Murphy, who is going to join us tonight to welcome you to the district. So thank you, Representative Murphy. We may have a little bit of a lag time here as things are moving on. So Representative Murphy is not here just yet, so he's probably a little bit late. There's a lot of things going on at the State House. So I'm going to introduce you to the subcommittee chair, Nina, and she will get the program started. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alice. And again, welcome everybody. It is, first of all, I don't know if I was live. I'll say it again. Hi, thank you, Alice. Thanks for being here. Bear with me. I have a few thank yous to make. First of all, thank all of you for being here and joining us. It's very exciting. We have some co-sponsors to thank. Our organizational co-sponsors are the South Shore Young Democrats and the South Shore Democratic Caucus. And we have a bunch of individual co-sponsors, including a large and illustrious list of Democratic State Committee members, including Alice Arena, our WDTC president, whom you just heard from, Linda Broadford, Carlos Da Silva, Karen DeTellis, Joe Kelly, Chris Matthews, Patrick McDermott, who's our Norfolk County Sheriff, Matthew McGonigal, and Melissa Shapiro, who is also the chair of the South Shore Young Democrats. And finally, I'd like to thank Richard Stady, our Norfolk County Commissioner. Thank you all for your encouragement and your support. Now, those of you who pre-registered, I did ask if you were elected officials, just so we could thank you for being with us. And we have here Sharon Stout, Deputy Treasurer of the Mass Dems and Chair of the Newton Dems, Hannah Switlakowski, Sharon Select Board Member, and Justin Evans of the Whitman Select Board. Now, one of the real pleasures of working on this program was getting to meet a truly amazing woman leader here in Massachusetts, and it is a great pleasure to introduce our moderator this evening, Nina Liang. Nina Liang is the first and so far only Chinese American city councilor to have been elected in her hometown of Quincy. She currently is serving as the first minority city council president there. Working with other community leaders, she co-founded the Quincy Women's Network, and she is presently the executive director for Emerge Massachusetts. Emerge is a nonprofit organization that trains democratic, self-identifying women to run for political office across all levels of government. So, before I turn it over to Nina, let me just ask if Representative Murphy has joined us. I'm not seeing any rush of affirmation. So I will happily turn it to Nina Liang. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good evening, everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you all this evening for a number of reasons. As somebody who was born and raised in Quincy and now serving on the council there, we've had the distinct honor of working with Weymouth over the years, and particularly on the issue with the compressor station. And truthfully, a lot of this work could not have been done without a lot of you actually who are out there and tuning into this evening with your efforts. And so I'm really proud and really honored to have such a great partner in Weymouth with the work we're doing in Quincy. Also, as executive director for Emerge Massachusetts, the training program that trains Democratic self-identified women to run for office across all levels of government. My first training class that I had when I came into this role is actually one of your current sitting school committee members, Rebecca Shangra. And so for a number of different reasons with different roles that I have, I'm super excited and thrilled to be here this evening. So I just want to go over some quick housekeeping before we go ahead and start and introduce our illustrious panel. For those who are tuning in through Facebook Live, you'll be able to submit your audience questions just by simply commenting on the actual video itself. If you're tuning in through YouTube Live, you can also submit your questions by submitting it through the comment portion live. We have some amazing folks who are working through this committee to manage all of the Q&A that's coming on through both of those channels, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible that get submitted. We're going to go ahead and start off this panel by asking some questions that were submitted by audience members prior to this evening. And again, from there, we'll try to get to as many questions as possible that were submitted by all of you as we go through this live. So with that, it is my distinct honor to introduce to all of you this evening our esteemed panelists. Each of them have made history in their time as elected officials, and the impact of their work has inspired women not only across the Commonwealth, but outside of it as well. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of them in different roles and capacities as well. And as somebody who is, I feel, still new to sort of the political industry, I'm really just thrilled and honored to be able to work with these incredible women in this space. So with that, I'd like to start with State Treasurer and Receiver General Deb Goldberg. Treasurer Goldberg.
Hi there. How are you tonight?
Good. Welcome. If you'd like to just quickly introduce yourself.
Oh, you want me to introduce myself? Well, the good news is that people from Weymouth know me pretty well. It's a place where I've been a great deal prior to being elected. I had tremendous support in Weymouth and always do, and have visited on multiple occasions. And Nina, of course, I know you very well. So rather than take up time where we can interact, I think I'll just say I'm your treasurer. And certainly a lot of the work that we've done in the last 6 years, even prior to me being sworn in, have both enhanced the role of women in politics, but particularly in the entire business world, not just locally, but nationally, because I became president of all of the treasurers of the country and have been able to take a significant number of our programs national. So rather than go into the list of things and maybe getting the chance to share things when I'm asked, I will continue, but when I'm asked. But I am happy to be here and happy to be with you, Nina. I looked at some of the early questions, and quite candidly, you and what you're doing at Emerge will be my response to some of them, because I think that Emerge is one of the most outstanding programs in the state in terms of empowering women to run for office and succeed in running for office. So with that, I'll stop and let you introduce a few more people so that we can then get on with the show.
Thank you so much, Treasurer Goldberg. And as you know, you've been an incredible mentor, not only to me, but just numerous women through the organization. So thank you so much for being here. Next, I'd like to ask State Auditor Suzanne Bump to come on. Hi, good evening, Auditor. Could you just introduce yourself as well?
Nice to be with you all. So I'm the State Auditor. I have been in this position for 11 years now, and I thank Weymouth Democrats and other voters for helping me gain this role. I'm really proud of what we do in state government, holding agencies and contractors accountable for how they spend your money. Just by way of biography, if you are of a certain age, you may remember that I was the state representative in the community next door, the town of Braintree, for 8 years. I was out of government for a while, came back with Deval Patrick as labor secretary, and as I say, have been in this role now for the past 11 years. I've spent a lot of time in and around government, seen a lot of progress, and I'm really happy to share whatever insights I can provide with all of you tonight. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Madam Auditor. And I can't remember, frankly, the number of times I've called you for advice. And so I'm super excited to have you here to share your wisdom with everyone tuning in.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I'd love to introduce and ask a state representative for the 3rd Plymouth District, Joan Moschino, to come on. Good evening, Representative.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here with you virtually. I wish I could be in person. I'm always glad to be with our Weymouth and our Quincy Dems. So as Nina was saying, I am the state representative for 3rd Plymouth District. I'm a lawyer. I'm an executive director. I was a selectman at the local level. Public service has always been something that has been tremendously important to me and that I find very gratifying and enjoy this work tremendously. I am just delighted that you are holding this panel and having this conversation because I think now more than ever it is so critically important to have women in politics on some very basic level. Women just need to be at the table when decisions are being made. And I think women, they bring so much to the table and to the dialogue, both values to influence policy, experience to inform strategy, and we model leadership. And so I'm looking forward to the questions. I'm delighted and honored to be with such an esteemed colleagues. And I'll turn it back over to you so we can get right to the heart of it.
Thank you so much, Representative. And as somebody who served at different levels of government, I just think that you have such a unique perspective to offer. So really looking forward to hearing from you as well. Thank you. Our 4th panelist is still logging on right now. And so we'll make sure to just keep moving forward. And when she comes on, we'll pause to introduce her as well, Mayor Kay. Before we dive into the questions, though, I do want to make sure to recognize Representative Murphy, who is here with us now. Representative Murphy.
Hi, Nina. Can you hear me okay?
We can. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks for having me on board tonight. I appreciate it. As Joan said, it's a shame we can't be doing this in person, but hopefully those things are changing pretty soon and be able to meet in the traditional sense. But it's an honor to be here tonight with the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee. Thank you for hosting along with the other sponsors tonight. I've had the pleasure of serving as state representative now for the 4th Norfolk District, representing Weymouth and Hingham for 20 years now. And I've had the pleasure and the honor of working with many of your panelists tonight, both when they were candidates and now that they're elected officials. I would say that in my years in the legislature, it's been an honor to work with people like Joan. Joan is, her and I share Hingham together, and it's quite an honor to work with her on so many things. And along with Sue Kay, who was our first mayor in the town of Weymouth. Sue was actually my soccer coach when I was about 6 years old, not to age Sue at all, but she was an amazing force in Weymouth, amazing force in my life personally, and it's an honor to have Sue on here tonight. Deb Goldberg, what can I say about Deb? She's been an amazing treasurer, always there for our communities when we needed her. I saw her as a candidate and I saw her elected, and I'm always amazed at how hard she works and the things that she does for my community and the Commonwealth. And Suzanne Bump, a former state representative, although I didn't serve with Suzanne, I came in after her, but an amazing auditor. These ladies in their own right are forces in the political landscape in our Commonwealth. I look forward to the day that women can run and be elected. I know that sometimes it's hard for women to run for office over the years, balancing different needs. And I'd say that there's been a definite increase in the amount of women that I've been able to work with in my years in legislature. Let's hope that continues to be. I continue to advocate for women in politics. It's not an easy life. And I see more and more people taking that jump into political life. And I am happy to call them my friends. And as we move forward through this pandemic, I'd be happy to say that I'll be working with all of you collectively to make sure that we get through this okay. And it's important nights like tonight to talk about women in politics. So hopefully, as time goes on, more and more women will delve into the political arena and become candidates themselves. So it's an honor to be here tonight. I look forward to hearing the questions and the answers. And I welcome all of the panelists here tonight to this forum with the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Representative, and thank you for being such a strong partner on the South Shore. We could use more representatives like yourself. So thank you for joining us tonight. All right, folks. So with that, we're going to dive into the meat of why we're all here. I'm super excited again to have all of you who are tuning in. We have an incredible panel tonight. I'm going to start off with, again, some questions that were submitted by audience members beforehand. And Treasurer Goldberg, this first question is going to go to you. This audience member had asked, when did you first get interested in running for office, and who urged you or supported you to run?
Well, it's going to be hard to believe, but the first campaign I worked on, I was 7. And so I was a mascot for Michael Dukakis, not when he ran for governor, but when he ran for state representative. So Representative Murphy, I probably could have been your coach also. But I my dad was in local politics. I ran the rides to the polls when I was 10. Chris Gabrielli's future mother-in-law, who just passed away, was the person who drove the station wagon. I gave her assignments. And by the time I was an activist, I mean, Ted Kennedy on one of his races when I was in elementary school had an office on Beacon Street in Brookline, and I went and volunteered. I helped run the moratorium against the war in Vietnam at 14 and 15 years old. And locally, I always knew I was going to run for at least town meeting. And however, before I even got to run for town meeting, people asked me to run for what was called then the Board of Selectmen, which is now the Select Board. So it was never a question mark. It was just a matter of timing. But what actually catapulted me forward to the exact time was a local issue. And I think that's what happens a lot for women. It often happens if they happen to have kids and there's a school issue. But I've seen that in a lot of communities. I even think that President Spilka started off as a school committee member, if I recall correctly. But for me, it was a local neighborhood issue, and it became very contentious, and I got so engaged and so involved that was it. I was immediately ran for town meeting, and as I said, people approached me to run. And at the same time, what's interesting is at the statewide level, people were asking me to look at state rep and state senate seats. Lois Pines, for example, I was very close and helped a great deal in her campaigns, said to me, you need to run for office. Evelyn Murphy was encouraging me to run for office. My mom and Evelyn and Lois were part of that era of trying to get women to run who they thought could persevere and win. So I was lucky. I had incredibly experienced, terrific mentors, and it just all came together. What's interesting about the treasurer's race is a lot of you know I ran for lieutenant governor in 2006. And so after that, I was focused on electing other women. And when people first started talking to me about the treasurer's race, I said, oh, been there, done that. It's my turn to help other women. However, the good news is women do have to be asked at least 5 times. I was asked 5 times. So there you go. Here I am.
So interesting to me that you mentioned these mentors that you have, because you do realize you're now a household name as well for women who want to come up.
Your household name.
No, honestly, I remember when I don't know if you remember when I first met you, I was kind of like deer in headlights and didn't know. And I still recall, again, all those moments where you grabbed me, pulled me aside, and just looked me straight in the eye and said, what are you up to right now? What are you doing? Buckle down, get it done, right? There's no time to sit here and dilly-dally. Like, if this is your work, you get it done. And so your name precedes you. And I'm just so thrilled to hear some of the folks who were your mentors and some of the people who you looked up to when you were first starting in this journey, because now it's really come full circle, right? And think about all the women that you are now also sort of passing that along to. So
Evelyn Murphy has been extremely important, because after she did not win running for governor, and I worked on that campaign, she got a fellowship out at Brandeis, and it's when she wrote the book on equal pay.
Mhm.
And so when I ran 6 years ago, and I said equal pay for equal work, starting day one in the treasurer's office, and from leading on that from that point forward, I was lucky. I had someone who knew how to get it done. And she sits on my Economic Empowerment Trust Fund board. And so that is, I really give her credit for helping me be so effective. Know that you had to audit your entire, I have 800 employees in the treasurer's office, so you had to do an internal audit, how you implement it, how you look at it, and how you then share that with the business community. So I have had great mentors, and I think mentors are key, and that's why Emerge, which you heard me, is so important, because it's a cohort, it's a group of mentors, it's people who've been there, done that, can tell you how to run a race, what pitfalls to avoid, how women are treated different than men, which they are, and I'm sure we will hear from everyone else on that. Guys hop in the shower, shake their heads like a puppy, and out the door. And people focus on our hair, our makeup, our clothes, and usually in a negative way. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot more challenging, and it's really critical to have other women who can support you and guide you along the way.
Absolutely. And again, it's really interesting to hear how you started, and then to see again that come full circle with you supporting and uplifting other women. So thank you so much. Our next question is going to go to Auditor Bump. Okay, so this question from the audience member to you is, if a woman is interested in running for office, is there an area where more folks are needed? For example, policy, planning, zoning, conservation, bicycle commission, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I guess the short and flip answer to that is women are needed everywhere. So with that as a baseline, if running for office, if really attaining a position of influence where you can affect the quality of life in your community or your district, if you run for a larger office, I would suggest that you really don't need to be quite so altruistic about where do people need help. It's where can I use my skills and what I've learned and what I am capable of doing, and make a contribution kind of on a higher level. So it's what is the best fit for you and for where you want to go. So I guess the answer is you've got to be strategic. Now I'm saying this after a life experience of not being at all strategic. So this is in hindsight. This is lessons learned. Because unlike Deb, I didn't come from a political family. I did get introduced to politics and electoral politics in college through women in my neighborhood that were engaged. I went to the State House as an aide at an early age. Even at that point, I didn't think of running for office myself. But then the woman for whom I was working retired, and at first I still didn't think of running for office myself. But I did, because I felt I looked at the position and I said, who else is going to do this job the way I think it should be done? Who else is going to represent the people in my community who are of greatest concern to me? How am I going to advance their welfare any better than I will? And that sounds a little conceited, but you've got to have ego if you're going to get into this business. If you're going to advance yourself at all in life. And so I think so I had a background in the issues. I was fortunate that I was young. I was new to the community. I didn't grow up there. But everybody else who was running for office did. They'd been there for years. They represented a lot of the status quo, and I did not. So I used that to my advantage while they were splitting up the the traditional hometown vote, I was able to appeal to the wider community based on my, frankly, superior knowledge of the issues, understanding how government works. So it really, that campaign just really played to my strengths. So figure out where it is that you can really make a mark, where you can really show off all of your talents and your insights and your leadership abilities. Understand, you've got to be able to read the room, so understand what people are expecting in that role to which you aspire. But don't, if you're really being strategic about this, it isn't just about what the community needs. It's what you can bring to whatever the challenging office is. And the power, I will tell you that, the power in a community is where the finances are. It's where the future of the community gets planned in the most elementary ways. So, finance, planning, where you can really have an impact on the nuts and bolts of what's going on. It's wonderful if you're just looking to be a volunteer, to be on, the Council on Aging, or, and I don't want to dismiss the importance of those roles in government. But if you really are planning a career, then you've got to be strategic. You've got to put yourself in places where you are really going to shine.
Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like it's a bit of twofold. It's about being strategic, but then also if and when you run for that particular office, it's connecting the work that you do with the constituents and the people you represent, so they know the importance of the work that you're doing. And I just know, for you particularly, you're not only a South Shore representative, right? You represent the entire state, but even when it comes to the folks that in Quincy and the South Shore, I see those connections and I see those relationships because you've been able to so well connect the work that you're doing to every constituent you represent. And I think that whether it's being strategic or not, that's a skill set I don't know that we can all pick up. So anytime you have any sort of tips to share on how to do that as well as you do, I think that'd be really helpful.
Practice. Practice, accept whatever leadership opportunities come your way to improve your own skills and to, assemble a group of admirers. Frankly, takes time though.
Right, so practice and strategy. I like it. Thank you, Madam Auditor.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Representative Miskino.
Hi.
Hello. So for you, the audience question is, do you feel that in today's social and political climate, that it's harder to do your job as an elected official? Do you think that being a woman makes it harder or easier to do your job?
So that's a great question. I'm going to answer that it's getting better, but it is still difficult. I first stepped forward as a local elected official in 2004 and became a selectman, and I was the only woman in the room. I was the only woman on the board, and pretty much everywhere I went, I was the only woman for a long time. And when you're the only person, of your gender, it stands out and you notice it, and you can use that to your advantage. But there is so much gender bias and I'll say it's unconscious bias, based on gender roles out in our communities, that it really does make it hard. And you learn very quickly how to cultivate and curate your voice, and which is just a politer way, a more professional way of saying you pick your battles. And a lot of times it's even just in the way you present. Treasurer Goldberg mentioned, you're judged by your hair, your makeup, your clothes, and it's often it is negative. I remember the first time I wore this really beautiful Talbot's, very expensive Talbot's pink tweed suit, and someone said, "Oh, I love when you wear that." And I thought, "Oh my God, what am I doing wrong?" They're noticing my clothes and not what I'm saying. And it really, it seems like a small thing, but here's what it does. is it means that you expend time and energy thinking about an extra thing, and worrying about how people are going to perceive you rather than focusing on the substance of your job, and it makes you second guess sometimes your strategy. When I ran for office on the state level the first time in 2016, I can just tell you the misogyny was palpable. That was the race between President Trump and Mrs. Clinton. Um, it was just all out everywhere I went. People were just in your face, and it was all gender based. It was all gender biased, and it makes it really hard to, when you walk into that room and you're trying to establish a rapport and relationships with people, because this is a business about relationships, and you think twice about what you say and how you say it, and how people will receive it. Where I'm sorry, I watch the guys and they just don't have that same, they don't have to have that same lens. And when you present something, I'm a lawyer and a nonprofit executive and a social justice advocate, and I am fierce in the advocacy of my district, and of my clients, and my policy and my jobs every step of the way, and I can be very direct. And when you are pressure point, you're direct, then there's gender discrimination there too, because people are like, well, she's bitchy, or she's too aggressive. But yet if you hang back, then people are pounding the table and saying, oh, I'm sorry, why isn't she getting in there? She's too nice. And so it's always about, I'm to this or to that. And so what you end up doing is walking this fine line, and it's a waste of time and energy, quite frankly. But ladies, let me just say it again, gender discrimination, sexism is alive and well, and it's just a piece that you will have to deal with as a client, as a candidate, and someday as an elected official. And you just learn your strategies, you figure out who you are, you watch your mentors, fabulous women like Auditor Bump and Treasurer Goldberg. These are the women I watch, because they're smart, they're tough, they're savvy, they have ambition, and they should. And they belong where they are, and they're doing great work, and they're not taking any prisoners. And that's exactly how you should bring it every single day. But you do have to be ready for it. And this public service is not for the faint of heart. And if you're thinking about it, it is totally worth it every step of the way. And you should be heartened by a few things. It has gotten better over time. I do feel like I experience these issues less. And there are really good guys, right? There's a reason why Massachusetts Political Caucus refers to it as the good guy award, because there are good guys out there. Representative Murphy, he has been a wonderful mentor to me, as both as a candidate and now as a colleague, and we share Hingham. So, the good guys are out there, and the work is very much worth it every step of the way. And I just don't want anyone to be discouraged by this. You just need to be ready for it. That's all.
No, I appreciate your honesty and your candor, Representative, because clearly you've been able to be impactful in your position, both on the local level, but as I've seen on the state level. But I appreciate that, even though we've seen that impactful side of it, to be able to hear from you today that you do actually recognize and have noticed and have seen and have dealt with the sexism that's happened along your journey. And so to know that you've recognized it, you've identified it, and then you've chosen how you're going to move on from it and how you're going to legislate around that is, I think, really something that's helpful to hear, right? To hear that you're going to be candid about the fact that, let's not be surprised, it does exist, it is out there, but clearly, as you've demonstrated, you can take that and still work around it to be effective and impactful. So I appreciate your candor with that.
Well, and I think what's important about sort of saying it out loud and owning it is building awareness. There are small microaggressions that, mansplaining, right? I love your generation. You name things. It's like, oh my God, I get it. I've been dealing with mansplaining all my life, right? But you do have to figure out your own strategies and it's not just as an elected official or candidate, it's as a professional person out there. And some of it is unconscious bias, and some of it is not meant to be, anything other than just common everyday language. And so I think it just really behooves us to be mindful of how we talk, and to constantly to be out there and training women emerge. I mean, I think that's a fantastic program that really can give women the tools they need to put themselves forward as candidates very successfully. Success is the best revenge. It really is. One thing that I'm really excited to say is, and I should have looked up the statistics, but we now have more women in the State House than we ever have had before. And so, really getting out there and promoting women in all of their professional endeavors, but in particular into public service and elected office, I think is tremendously important. You can't do this by yourself. Women have to fundraise, and they have to do social media, and they have to put themselves out there, and they need teams to do that, and they need other women supporting them, right? So maybe you're not the candidate, maybe you're the campaign manager, or maybe you're not even a campaign manager, maybe you're the person that writes the check. Mm-hmm. And getting women and just having shared numbers, really does change the dialogue. I remember when I was first elected selectman, it was a local issue that inspired me to run. And I thought, I don't know much, but I know I can do better than those guys. And the minute I got elected, it changed the dynamic in the room. That was partly gender. That was partly me being a lawyer, partly me just who I am. But as soon as I walked into the room, everyone recognized it. It changed the dynamic. And that's why women have to run. That's why women have to be at the table making decisions, because it changes the dynamic. And that's how you get past sort of some of these old stereotypes, is just by success and having women out there who are role models and mentors. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. So any room that we walk into, all of you women who are tuning in, just channel our inner Representative Moschino and we'll dominate the room. Thank you so much, Representative. I appreciate your candor tonight. Next, we're going to go to our fourth panelist who is able to join us now, and I'd love for her to also introduce herself before we go into the question. So first, I'm going to ask for her to come on to introduce herself, and then I'll ask her the next question. Mayor Susan Kay. Mayor Kay, how are you this evening?
I'm just fine, Nina. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You can just take a few minutes to introduce yourself, and then we'll move on to your question.
Sure. I'm of an Irish Catholic family, grown up in South Boston, and went to Catholic schools for 12 years. Very, very basic. Moved to Weymouth and found that, wow, there was a representative town meeting, and people could get up, even just residents, and speak their piece and talk about their comments and what they were concerned about. And I found this very, very refreshing and very democratic. I said, I've got to be part of this. So I ended up starting to work on the Weymouth News, and we published the town meeting warrant booklet. And that's where I found out about what's going on in town. So I actually ran to become a town meeting member, and I was successful. And in going to town meeting, I learned an awful lot about the budget and different town departments, and I wanted more. I will tell you that in relation to the gender issues, many, many women were town meeting members. So I was really lucky, because on a basic local level, we had women in politics. We had them showing strength and working very hard, and I think that's why they had really good reputations. I was then put on to finance committee, and that's where you learn about every single town department and what monies they need, what is their need, what is their function. And that was wonderful. And again, this was a representative town meeting form of government. So there was selectmen, which I ran for and was successful. And I served 3 terms as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I will tell you that women were not in the majority as a member of the Board of Selectmen, but all of the women that I can say had served on it really pulled their weight. They worked very hard, and they got a respect. So I'll tell you that the women on these key boards were very respected. From there, I ran for town council and served 3 terms as a town council, and then actually ran for mayor. The first time we changed our form of government, which I helped. I was on the last Board of Selectmen. And I must tell you that on these local boards, you can be very effective. Women tend to do the work. And when men don't want to do the work, the women do. And that's where they get the respect, and that's where they get results. So when we changed our form of government, I ran for mayor and was not successful the first time. So I ran for council the second time around and was elected as a town council, serving 3 terms as town council, and then went 2 terms, I'm sorry, as town council, and then ran for mayor, and I was successful. And so there I served as 2 terms as the mayor of Weymouth, first woman mayor of Weymouth. And I will tell you that even as a counselor, that is the legislative side of government, but also very important. Women were respected. And I'll tell you that they were always in the minority, maybe 1 here, 2 there, but we did our homework and we worked very hard. And I think that the males on the boards respected that. And I know that the residents of Weymouth did, because we tended to get reelected a lot. So you'll find that there are women on the town council now. There was a female mayor, and I will tell you that it was such a joy to be able to get out into the community. And it really wasn't so much a feminine issue as it was a family issue. It was all about the families, making sure, and maybe as women, we were more sensitive to that. In fact, I'm sure we were. So that came across very well and really successful. Now, as a mayoral form of government, it's much stronger, it's more effective, and you'll see women getting on boards and committees more. Unfortunately, when we were a representative town meeting form of government, you could get on committees much easier. There were many more committees, and we saw a lot of women doing that. So, if women want to get started in your town government, try to get on committees, not because you may really love what you're doing there, but you get a little bit of name recognition in addition to knowing more about the government and meeting more people who are involved in town government or city form of government. So that's really where we were at. I thoroughly enjoyed my time as an elected official and on appointed official on committees.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. And as a local elected myself, I'm just in awe of your journey in serving in local office. I mean, it's, all politics is local, and for you to have done it at different levels on the local level, I think is incredibly impressive. And so to that end, actually, it's a great segue into the question that I have for you from an audience member, which is, if you're to give one piece of advice, which is your best piece of advice to those who wanted to run, the one that you'd use yourself, what would that be?
I was very fortunate, Nina, in that I got very involved in youth sports. I was new to the town. Well, this was 40 years ago, excuse me. And I was kind of new to the town. So I got involved in youth sport. I was sports. I volunteered very heavily. I coached. I volunteered on the board of directors. That's where you meet an awful lot of people, and they see what you're worth, what you're willing to give the town. So that was a big advantage to me, being involved in youth sports. And we grew these youth sports organizations to where a point of where there were like 2,000 kids involved. So you met an awful lot of parents. Fine, and that's where you meet people. In that way, people are more comfortable with you. And then when you're going to run, they support you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, again, to that point, support is, I think, so important, regardless if it's your family, your friends, your loved ones, or, to the point of a lot of our panelists, even here this evening, that spoke about a number of times, it's that mentorship relationship, right? It's talking to folks like yourself, Mayor, who, you've been in different roles and different capacities, and to be able to have the support from someone like yourself who's been through that, I think is so deeply important. So thank you so much for sharing with us this evening, and thanks again for joining us. With that, folks, I'm going to go to an audience question that was submitted that I'd like to ask all of our panelists. And I'm just going to, while they're coming onto the screen, remind folks to submit your questions. If you're tuning in through Facebook Live, you can submit it through the chat. If you're tuning in through YouTube Live, you can submit it through there as well. We have an amazing team on background right now facilitating all of that to make sure that we get your questions to our panelists. So this question is going to be asked to all of them. And then after that, we're going to start diving into some of the live questions that are coming in. So to each of you, I'd love for this part to be sort of more of a dialogue to hear what your thoughts are as well. And that is, what specific steps can our party take to attract, engage, and retain women, not only as members of the party, but as party leaders and candidates from diverse backgrounds, including Black, Indigenous, and other marginalized ethnic groups, LGBTQIA+, and disabled communities. So again, I'd love for this to be more of a conversation and a dialogue. And once we answer this, we'll turn it over to the audience questions.
When you say our party, are you referring to locally or nationally?
That's a great question. The audience question did not specify, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on both or either.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'll jump in. I think that the local Democratic Town Committees, like the ones that are hosting us here tonight, have a real opportunity because they are on the local level. You know your neighbors, you know who's active, and you can really build the bench. We've heard a couple of times this theme of asking a woman to step forward and serve. Ask. You know who the women are in your community. I say, as the Democratic Town Committees, you have a real ability to help build the bench at the local level in particular. Someone said to me right from the get-go, she had pulled me aside when I was running for for selectman, and she said, I want to ask you about gay marriage. And I was like, well, sure. And we had this really great conversation about, supporting a gay marriage. At the time, that was the court case that was coming through. And I paused and I asked her, why are you asking me that question? Because today's selectman is tomorrow's state rep. Okay. And that's why you ask those questions and you vet those candidates and you find them and encourage them on the local level, and that builds your bench.
If I may, I agree with that. I think that the party has been doing the right thing for a long time, actually. When we were getting at Caucus, going to electing delegates to go to the convention, they have been aware for many years of ways of thinking and alliances that kept out women, that kept out people of color, that kept out folks with disabilities, and so they had an add-on process. Which I think has really helped. And at first, frankly, I think that those were regarded as sort of token, delegates and some concession that was being made to appease, not that I felt that way, but I think that was a way a lot of people regarded it. But now we see that those folks are getting elected in their own right as delegates, and they're moving up the chain. As I have been around and looking at this now for, I hate to say it, 40 years, I have, and I look at the state, this is not specific to Weymouth, let me say, I think that there still is a lot of resistance to opening up the process in other town committees across the state. I'm not even saying that it is motivated by gender animus or prejudice or racial. It's just that they aren't used to involving other people, and they've got a group that they want to satisfy, and that's it. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of town committees, is to open it up to new members of their community, newly awakened members of their community to participate. And that's frankly a harder nut to crack than is change at the Democratic State Committee. I'm kind of anxious to hear what Deb has to say, because Deb's been around for a while So if I may, I'm gonna ask Deb to go next.
And also I've now, for the last couple of years, I am a member of the DNC now because I am chair of the Democratic Treasurers Association, which I resurrected. And so what I'm going to add in is my experience nationally, and also I'm an elected state committee member. I was originally an add-on, so I agree with Suzanne that the add-on opportunities I think are really critical because it was my sort of easy way in, so to speak, although a lot of women do run as an add-on. I think, I'm going to be candid, is that you have, if we're talking about women, not just different diverse backgrounds, but if we're talking about women, the most quick and effective way to get change is to have a woman in charge. It's just a matter of a fact. I'm chair of the Democratic Treasurers. My vice chairs and other officers are men. I often have to remind them that when we do a lot of outreach to press on our issues, and that I have to remind our executive director often that he only gave the press 3 male names, and that I will not tolerate that. That we've now put another woman on as one of our officers, and one of us has to always be included. And I think that therefore we need to have a concerted effort to have more women be head of the local town and city committees. We need to think about, we typically have one chair of the state committee, and maybe we should have 2. Maybe we should have 2 co-chairs to make sure that we have a more diverse group of people running the state committee itself. And at the national level, although there's intention, and we now have Jamie Harrison, and we have a very diverse group leading it. However, the DNC still thinks in a terribly old way. They do not understand at all how the Republicans have been so successful, because they don't seem to understand the statewide pipelines at all. It's all about Senate and congressional races, not about how many auditors are women, how many auditors are people of color, how many auditors are Democrats. Same for treasurers. And the Republicans are.
That's right.
And they are feeding those pipelines straight to Congress and straight to the Senate. And a lot of those wacky people that we have to listen to, like Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, former Treasurer Kennedy from Louisiana. And I can go on and on and on, and the DNC ignores the state work. They want you to raise money for them.
Right.
And doesn't seem to grasp, for example, in Massachusetts, how many people had to vote for Suzanne Bump. A lot more than voted for any one of our Congress people, that's for sure. And in fact, a lot more than for me or for Suzanne than voted for some of our Senate candidates at times too. So we represent the people. We have our ear to the ground, and we know what they care about. And certainly in the roles of auditor and treasurer, because we understand the messaging and what people everywhere care about. And I think the DNC doesn't. And the state committee gets a little lost. I'm going to be blunt with you. There was a fundraising email from the state committee, and I texted Gus a week and a half ago and said, "You're completely out of line." I said, it was against our governor. You want to go after him on the rollout? Go ahead. But on some other things that it was like ridiculous. And I said, there should be a lesson learned here. Suzanne and I know what people care about. We hear from them every day. We respond to them. Right, Suzanne?
Absolutely.
And so I feel that I had to help create the Democratic Treasurers Association because we were down to 9 Democratic treasurers when once upon a time there were 35. And Missouri is an incredible case in point. They start at the treasurer level and they just feed it right up to governor and to the Senate. Claire McCaskill was knocked off with that whole strategy. They get it. We don't.
No.
We're very busy doing good things, making sure that we do have all these diverse groups and that we're putting them into positions. But it seems like when people get in those positions, they still don't comprehend politics. Simply do not understand politics.
Thank you.
Yes, I know. I just, like, for those who are tuning in live, I can just hear the clapping. I mean.
And this straight talk is why Sue Kay endorsed me for treasurer.
That's right, Deb. And
we've been lamenting for 20 years or more the Republicans' grasp of that and getting people to run and move their way up the chain, and we just have not done that. We are really bad at that. I don't know what our problem. I don't know how to describe.
You all recall that when Joe Kennedy left to run for Senate, even Washington, everyone wanted me to run for that seat. And I've got to tell you something. I have a far better job than being a congressperson. I can get things done. And so can Suzanne. And have gotten things done. That was just before when I was going to kick off the Baby Steps Savings Plan, which last January, and it's been more successful than we planned during the pandemic. We seed every baby born or adopted in Massachusetts a college or vocational and technical training savings plan and wrap financial literacy services around them and the family. And I said, I'm going to walk away when this is my baby that I ran on in 2014, and now we're rolling out, and we did it, and it's happening. And the families are taking our financial literacy courses, and they're saving during a pandemic.
And that's the kind of work that I think is so impressive. And like I was saying to Joe, Representative Moschino earlier, I so appreciate the candor and the passion in this group. And I think, Mayor Kay, I'd like to actually turn it back over to you. I heard you jump in earlier. And I think just your perspective about, again, building that kind of pipeline on the local level too, right? To get to what Ms. Goldberg was talking about is that's what we need, right? And so do you have any thoughts on, what we can do to build within our communities to get that pipeline up to the national level as well?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity, Nina. We have great representation on a state level here this evening, and I'm thrilled to have these ladies because they're very knowledgeable and they bring us to the state level. Now I'm going to bring you back down to local. The town committees, the local town committees are critical. What they do in our community is so important. Reaching out. I have spent hours and hours trying to get into the census and to people maybe who are not, in town legally or whatever. We want them to be counted. We also want them to know about what a Democrat is. Weymouth Town Committee actually made up copies of the Constitution and handed them out to all senior graduates, to the graduates of high schools. It was fabulous. They had never read it before.
Right.
And and what it said was, here, we are Democrats and we want you to know what's going on. So we need to, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at it, but we need to do more. We need to get out there, outreach, and tell people what the Democrats are all about. It's certainly not receiving any kind of help with the Republicans. So they have to know what we are doing on a local level, on a state level, and a federal level, and be able to be comfortable with becoming a Democrat. And that's the bottom line. That's what we need. And it starts at the local level.
I appreciate that. It sounds like education, outreach, and support, right, all around, and making sure that folks know the importance of all positions across all levels of government. I mean, you women are dominating in your fields, right? And we need to spread that out and influence others to step into these roles as well. That actually is a great segue into an audience question that we have here from Faith E. Simon, which is, how can women in politics find the best mentors that they have for them. So, I think all of you, each of you had spoken a little bit about mentorship, and even frankly, how to see the crossover mentorships that have happened here in this space is really remarkable. So I'd love to throw that question again out to all of you. And Madam Treasurer, we can start with you. And if you can just, again, answer this question here, how can women in politics best find mentors?
Well, first of all, I think that what you should do is, I'm going to take you right back to what Sue Kay said, local level. There's got to be, I hope, at least one woman elected in your local community or in your Senate district. And that is the person you need to reach out to. As I mentioned in my original statement, I wanted to commit my life to public service. My mother, who had been a mentor for a lot of women, said, pick 3 women in different areas of public service. So I picked a woman who was running the United Way at the time, a woman of color named Marion Hurd. I did pick Lois Pines, because she was my state senator and about to run statewide for attorney general. And then I picked Evelyn Murphy because I had worked on her campaign, and she was she knew so much. She had been a cabinet member under Caucus. She had been a lieutenant governor. She had done so many things. Now, I was lucky coming out of the Brookline area. We had a lot of women elected. Some areas only have 1 or 2. But choose a local woman, because candidly, the first thing that you should do to run for office, I believe in starting and building your way up. And I think the reason why is because it gives you can make mistakes that you can recover from, and you can build alliances, which I think are really important. The difference I learned a lot of mistakes during my lieutenant governor run, and that was after I'd served for 6 years and chairman, which is competitive in Brookline. You have to be able to elbow your way to the chairmanship. It's not a rotation. And I learned a lot of mistakes in my first race, but I also was gracious and built a lot of alliances. And that helped me a great deal when I ran again in 2014. You need alliances with women, and you need alliances with men. You need to get to learn the insiders, and you've got to bring on the outsiders. And that is the most successful track. But a local elected official can start to get you involved and help you on that path. People know Jessie Ramel ran for Congress. I coached her on running for library trustee.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's what I see. So I so appreciate really the extent of your mentorship. And I think that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Madam Auditor, I'm going to go to you next. As somebody who, like you had mentioned earlier in one of your responses, sort of didn't have a lot of political connections and you decided to run. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how you have found your best mentors when you ran.
Well, a couple of thoughts on mentorship. First of all, don't expect too much. Don't overthink it. Go and have conversations with women whom you admire and who have taken on leadership roles. And I think in the very beginning, you don't restrict yourself to women in the political sphere. There are a lot of accomplished women who maybe built a business from scratch. They may be the head of the Chamber of Commerce. What you need to understand, first of all, are leadership lessons. What you need to do to ground yourself in order to have people, respect you for what you can do and what your visions are and how you get followers. And if you're a business person, you don't really just get to order people around. You've got to bring people along, and so you can learn a lot from women who have achieved a certain level of respect and an influence within a community, even if it's not on the political level. And Deb's been really lucky to have been able to maintain long-term relationships with women. You're not always going to be able to get that. Sometimes it's a conversation here or there, and you nonetheless can learn a lot from them. You so don't have a lot of hard and fast rules about what you're looking for from a mentor. You can take the example of a lot of different people and figure out what really works for you. I suppose I'm saying this because, in fact, in my life, I haven't leaned on any one particular mentor. The woman for whom I first worked, who was the state representative from Braintree and whom I succeeded, was indeed my first mentor, well, my second mentor, but because the first mentor was the woman for whom I babysat that got me involved in politics in the first place.
By the way, equally important, Suzanne.
I know. So you never know, who is going to be able to give you direction and give you inspiration and good advice. And then just along the way, there are women who you will interact with that you really feel some connection and you really understand that there's something that you can learn from them. But I say, don't overthink it. Don't think that it's got to be a particular model of mentorship, and don't go asking too much of them to start with. I mean, you don't have to know that you're in a mentor relationship with them all the time either.
I want to add into that, because when I did explain who the mentors were, I spent 1 hour with Lois Pines. I had breakfast with her and she said, you need to run for office. That was it.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot more conversations about that. She said, call town hall when you get home, because we didn't have. And then I had lunch with Evelyn. So again, it was 1 hour. Yeah. And she said, she said, you absolutely should run for office. So I didn't make it to dinner with Marion Hurd, or I might have gone to work for the United Way.
It's these conversations, it sounds like, that evolve and become mentorship relationships, right? There's Madam Auditor, to your point, right? And Madam Treasurer, this is a great story that you're sharing, is that, we shouldn't have these expectations that we're going into those 1 hour lunches with hey, can you be my mentorship? Here's a checklist of things, right? It sounds like it's a natural conversation that turns into a mentorship relationship.
Yeah. So pick out women that you admire who've been successful in one field or another, or you just like their style and you want to, figure out, why does this work for them? How can it work for me? Don't expect that they're going to be your fairy godmother throughout the whole rest of your political career.
No, and I think the candor that you exhibit what makes people incredible mentors, right? Is that you tell it like it is. And I'm sure, again, everyone tuning in here tonight can see that, is that, for me anyways, I think that is what makes you such strong mentors, right? Is that you are honest and you tell it like it is. You're not going to sugarcoat things. And that's the best way I think you can learn from a mentor, right? Is to have someone challenge you to grow. Representative Espino, I'd love to actually hear from you too about the mentorships that you've had along the way, because you have transitioned between different levels of government, so have you been able to find mentors that you think have been able to grow with you as well? Or what are your thoughts on finding mentors as you go through different levels of office as well?
Absolutely. Some of the mentorship relationships have been so important to me. When I was thinking about running for state rep, I went to a former state rep, Marty Walls, who I've known for quite a long time. First met her because I was testifying in front of her when she was the chair of the Education Committee. And we just struck up a good rapport. And when she left service, she became an executive director. And I was mentoring her. And we were having those kinds of dialogues as well. And so sometimes the mentor relationships will surprise you and they can flip. How we support each other as women in all aspects of our professional lives. And so Marty Walls was really a very important one. In the building now, some of the women that have been really good mentors to me have been Alice Peich. I sit next to her on the floor. Sometimes these things are just a circumstance. There's 160 members. I sit next to Alice on the floor, and she's just been great to me. She, you know, I can ask her any stupid, funny, quirky little question, and you know, and she's like, well, let me tell you. And so, you know, sometimes you have to, you know, seek out, you know, for, you know, people who are, you know, in leadership, whether it's someone like, you know, a former Speaker Pro Tem Haddad, or the current majority leader, Claire Cronin. These are women who have been in this space, and they know it well. They've seasoned. There's just nothing new to them, right? So you can ask those questions, and you know they can really help you think it through. And I think the other thing I would just say is they can be informal relationships as well. You know, it doesn't have to be this sort of, can I please take you to coffee and ask you all these pointed questions? You know, sometimes it's the informal relationships where you can just grab someone and just say, you know, can I ask you a kind of crazy question, or can I ask you a thoughtful question? And it really does. I said it earlier in my remarks. It's about relationship building, and you will have multiple mentors at the same time for different components of your work and things that you're asking for, and you know, you have to cultivate those. One thing I will also say, ladies, is you do have to ask. You know, busy, high-level professional women, you know, sometimes your hair's on fire. You're moving. You're just keeping pace, and you're busy. And so don't wait for someone to notice you. If you see a woman in a role that you admire, or you'd like to ask how she got there, or even just if you'd like to ask questions or guidance or what have you, just ask. She'll tell you if she has time. She'll make time for you. And if she doesn't have time, it's cool. You know, she might pass you on to somebody else, or, you know, just ask you to reschedule another time. But you should feel comfortable making the ask. People like to be asked. And I think that's an important piece. And here's the other thing I'm just going to ask all of you. If you step forward and ask someone to mentor you, I want you to promise and commit that you will turn around and help the next person who comes behind you. So you have to promise me that you will be the mentor that you're seeking as well.
That's such a great point, Representative Mosquito. So are you saying that everybody who's tuning in who wants to reach out to any one of you to be potential mentors should absolutely do so, and then pass that along as well?
Absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
I actually run a mentoring circle. I have for about 15 years now. For young women lawyers, I mentor in the building as well. So I actually I do a lot of mentoring, both through sort of formal structures, through the Women's Bar Association, for example, as well as informally too. So yeah.
That's awesome. That speaks to Madam Auditor's point earlier that she was saying that it doesn't have to be people just in the political ether, right? It could be people in all different walks of life in different industries. And so thank you for affirming that. Mayor Kay, I'd love to pick your brain about this question, because we do have a lot of folks who are tuning in from Weymouth, obviously, and you know, in other communities in the South Shore as well. So specifically for you, you know, what do you think is a good way for folks either in Weymouth or in South Shore communities similarly to find their best mentors?
I would say, and it's really interesting in Weymouth because it was interesting in my case because the women that were in office at the time saw me as a threat. So they weren't about to divulge any kind of help to me. But I found that the men love their egos. Those politicians just love to talk, and they like to tell you what's what and what you should do. And what is good for you. So in my case, I have to say that I leaned on the men more. But overall, there are people love, especially elected people, and more so retired elected officials, love to share with their experiences and how they can help you. I have never, ever heard of anyone, you know, saying to someone, well, we're not going to help you out here because we don't like you or whatever. We're always very, very open to doing that. I have mentored, it's got to be 10 people in the last few years, and I welcome it, and I like it, and I follow up. I think following up is really important too. So if you're looking for a mentor, find a mentor that you know will follow up with you, because you're going to need them in the long term. You're going to need to be able to call them and say, hey, I'm doing this. Is that okay? What do you think? Something like that. So in my case, more so men than women, unfortunately, because there weren't as many women in office. But on the whole, there are a lot of women on a local level who are in office. Seek them out. They will help you. And if they don't, go for the men.
Thank you so much. Again, right, speaks to the point that it sounds like we need to be, creative about who we reach out to and not be exclusive to folks just in politics. To not go in with a checklist and a thing that says, will you be my mentor? Check this, check yes, check no, check maybe, right?
Right.
And to sustain those kinds of relationships. I mean, this is really helpful advice from each and every single one of you. Thank you so much. So we do have time for just one more question, and this actually comes from a committee member. And again, just want to keep it, sort of open dialogue as well. And it's, if you would go back in time, what would you do differently in this journey and why?
That's a hard question. It's funny, is someone asked me recently I was just presenting to Tufts, and it's one of their graduate courses. They have like a whole speaker series, and they're like, oh, people like to hear about your journey. And I started laughing because I was like, oh, you mean the cow path that I meander along? It's funny because I have to say, as I'm sitting here, my story seems to make so much more sense now that I'm here, and I'm not sure it necessarily did along the way. And I'd say the only real the mistakes that we all make mistakes. Listen, I make mistakes every day, and they're just part of life. But what I feel like is the things that I sit here and I think to myself, it's the things I didn't try. When I'm a shy person by nature, and so like when I let something stop me from going for what I really wanted to, that's the mistake. I feel like that a few times where I thought, oh, that was an opportunity and I missed it. And I think that's a hard thing to know in the moment. But I think all you can really do is, just try things if you're inspired to do so. And take whatever skill building, whether it's leadership moments or substantive things, just try it. Those are skills you'll learn. And honestly, the best way you learn is when you make mistakes, you have to figure it out, try again. So I don't know, that's a great question, but I'm not sure I can point to any one thing except for there's a few opportunities I just thought, why didn't I step forward and grab that while I had the chance? So don't be shy. Get out there and do it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else have any thoughts on what they would do differently?
I would say in the area of, I was very, very fortunate in that I just kind of fell into these roles, and they were, right on down from town meeting member to selectman to counselor. I hit every single area of local government. And so, I really became ready, and I had that there. I didn't plan it. It just kind of happened. But I will tell you that one of my great experiences and learning areas was when I was placed on the Appropriation/Finance Committee. And that's where you learn about all town government budgets in every single department. And that was a real learning curve. That was fabulous, and I really enjoyed it. However, now that was male dominated. And my first day on the committee, the secretary who kind of ran the meeting stood up and said, "You are not to ask questions until you are here 2 years."
Ooh.
I regret not saying to him, "Are you kidding me? That's just not going to happen, sir." But I didn't. And I kind of followed the rules. So the third year in, I made them crazy. But I did what I did.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. My goodness. Thank you. I hope that inspires others to speak up in that moment as well. And I think it's hard sometimes when you hear that and you're taken aback and you're like, did I just hear that correctly? So thank you for sharing that. Wow. Madam Auditor or Madam Treasurer, do any of you have any thoughts on maybe what you would have done differently?
I would have asked for help. I would have asked for help more often. I would have asked people's opinions more often. I think it's the eldest child syndrome. I was expected to do well, and I felt like that meant that I was always supposed to know everything, and I didn't, that a little bit of that imposter syndrome. No, I don't want to ask that question. It would reveal that I'm really not supposed to be in this role. I would have asked for help more often.
Thank you for sharing that and for your candor. Madam Treasurer, do you have any thoughts on what you would have done differently?
I'm the oldest child also, but I've also been had this personality a long time. And so I'll never forget, actually, when I was in law school and I raised my hand and said, this may be a stupid question, but, and so I've been, I've sort of been pretty straight out there for a long time. I've been trying to think back, and I feel very, I think that I think you learn more from falling down than being successful. And so I think that anything that I didn't succeed in, I learned from and became stronger. And I really mean that. And so I don't regret any of that. I mean, there are lots of times where I completely thought that I was never going to get anywhere in life. But I believe that when you do pull yourself together and persevere, and that's what I tell the women that groups of women that I speak to and that I mentor. Don't take your eye off the ball. You might not feel strong inside, but persevere. Don't let the bastards get in your way. My mom had a picture in her office, and you'll have to forgive me. My husband wants to eat his dinner, so he's coming in the kitchen. It was a kitty cat hanging onto a branch by its claws that said, hang in there. So it's hang in there, persevere, pursue your dreams, and rejigger it if you need to. Pick yourself up and keep on going, because you never know what's around the corner. But don't let others defeat you. Keep on going.
Thank you so much. So inspiring. And that leads me to my ask to all of you for final thoughts as we wrap up this evening. The titles of this event, as we can see at the top here, is Women Lead the Way in Massachusetts. And I think that title holds true, as we can all see, because of all four of you here tonight. The four of you are a prime example as to why we can say women do lead the way here in the state. We are obviously in very challenging, crazy times. And I think, as inspiring as all of this is, we probably feel empowered now to take that next step and to go out and to do something with all of the advice that we've gotten here tonight. So with the closing thoughts, I'd like to go around and ask each of you, do you have any final thoughts to depart onto all of us that we can take with us in the work moving forward? And Mayor Kay, again, as the mayor of Weymouth, I'd love to start with you with your final thoughts for the evening.
Thank you, Nina. I will say that I have to thank the people, the residents of Weymouth, for allowing me just to have gone through incredible experiences, a growing field of experience and expertise that I would never have obtained. I went through, just think about it. I mean, not only becoming a sort of expert in budget financing, but also I went through the recession with them. We went through better times, fixing fields when there was no money. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I wish that all women, all Democrats, get involved, get out there. You will enjoy it. It's an enjoying time of life, and you will feel so fulfilled by helping the residents of your town. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Representative Moschino, do you have any inspiring final thoughts for us to take and go out there and change the world with?
So I agree with Mayor Kay. I say go out there. It is okay to pursue your ambition. If you're inspired to set forward for public service, I agree. I enjoy this work tremendously. And no one was more surprised than me that I would run, that I would enjoy it as tremendously as I do. And I think if it's your aspiration, you should absolutely strive for it without apology. And find the path that works for you. Because you're, at the end of the day, as an elected official, it sort of begins and ends with you, and you're the one that has to own it and figure it out. This isn't for everybody, and that's okay, right? Not everyone is built for public service, but you can also support candidates, write checks. There are other roles that you can do to support women in leadership in politics in Massachusetts. But I just say it begins and ends with you, and you have to find a path, and you will. You absolutely will.
Thank you so much, Representative. Madam Auditor, I think so many folks, myself included, can really identify with you and your journey. So I'd love to hear your parting words as well to folks like myself who are out there who, want to get involved, want to get engaged, and hopefully change their communities.
Well, if you're going to run for office, you really have to have a great degree of self-awareness, understand what level of risk you're willing to take and how hard you're willing to work. You have to be willing to lose. You have to be willing to stumble, and Deb said, and then get up and go on the next day and just try to learn from that stumble. And you've got to be willing to expand your own way of thinking and even your own agenda. If you're going to represent people, then you're going to still have your agenda. Don't give up your own values and goals, but find a way to accommodate the concerns of others that may be very different from yours, but are often typically as legitimate as yours. And if you really are going to say you believe in public service, then you've got to buy into the whole. You've got to buy into the whole thing. It's a marvelous opportunity, as Susan Kay was saying, marvelous opportunity for growth, exposure to the world. We're not terribly. People think we're well resourced in government. We never have all that we need, and so you're going to be called upon to do a lot of things with. And put them together, as Deb can tell you, with duct tape and twine. But it's a marvelous endeavor, and you'll get a great deal of satisfaction out of it.
Thank you so much. And of course, Madam Treasurer, I've been lucky enough to get some great advice from you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts that you could share out with all of us as well for parting words tonight.
Well, kind of my last words were good parting words. Visualize that kitty cat hanging by the limb, and don't let them get in get in your way. But I agree with everyone who has spoken tonight. Incredibly satisfying to be a town meeting member. Incredibly enriching and satisfying to be at the time selectman and now select board member. It is wonderfully and personally enriching to be able to make a difference in people's lives. And I think that is largely the appeal to women going into public service. I think that we have an added layer of passion about what we're doing. And so I encourage everyone, get out there, run and lose, run and win. Get involved, campaign for others, find what is exciting and fulfilling for you as a human being. And again, then don't let them get in your way. Pursue your dreams.
Thank you so much. And to all four of you, I wish that, everyone online who's tuning in can also have their audio be heard, because my goodness, I want to give you the biggest round of applause. And for those of you who know me, Madam Auditor, Madam Babam, I want to give you the biggest hug. You've all four of you truly have been so incredibly inspiring tonight. And again, I think this is a true testament as to why we can say here in Massachusetts that women do lead the way, right, across all different levels of government. And it's so deeply important to make sure that the path that you have paved, we step into that. And those who are tuning in, please step into that, because all 4 of these remarkable women have not only been the first, but are working still today, as you can see, to make sure they are not the last. And so I ask all of you who are hearing this tonight and seeing the work that they are doing to make sure to step into that path that they have created for each of you. And I do just want to plug in as well that for those of you who are inspired tonight and interested, to please check out the organization that I work for in my day job, emergemassachusetts.org. This is a training organization for women who are interested in running for office, as well as running campaigns, like we heard here tonight. This work can't be done alone just by the candidate. And so I do encourage folks to check out the website, reach out to me as well if you're interested in applying. But truly, the work we do at the organization is possible because of women like this who are out there mentoring and connecting with our alum and making sure that they have folks to look up to in this work. And so, again, truly, to all 4, I wish I could keep all 4 of you here for another hour and a half, frankly, to pick your brain about stuff.
I was supposed to go to another meeting at 7:30 and stayed. So
no, I so appreciate that. I looked at the time and I said, "My goodness, she's still here. I love it." And that again speaks to the passion that you have for this work.
Zoom in 1 second.
I love it. Well, I just, again, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of everyone who's tuning in, truly thank you so much for all the work you've done, all the glass ceilings you shattered. And for all those girls that you're helping as well to come, behind you. Thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart. Have a good night.
Thanks, Nina.
Thank you. Great
Thank
job.
you so much.
Good to see you all.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to both Nina and Alice to wrap up the night, and to the 2 of you and all of you over at the Weymouth Dems and the South Shore Dems. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to host tonight. I'm such a huge, huge fan of these 4 panelists here, and I'm just so honored and grateful to have had the evening to speak with them. So Alice and Nina, thank you so much again, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Nina. And thank you, Nina. So I just want to say, wow, what an unbelievable program. And it was so animated and so personal. How did you feel about it, Nina? You did a great job putting this together.
Well, thank you. It was just so inspiring. I am amazed by the generosity and insight of all of our panelists, and of course, my namesake, Nina Liang, our moderator.
Of course. So from the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee, certainly many, many thanks to Auditor Bump, Treasurer Goldberg, Representative Moschino, and of course, our own Mayor Susan Kay. And to our moderator, Nina Liang. Nina, if you don't know who Nina is, she is the president of the Quincy City Council and is an amazing politician in her light. So with that, again, we thank you for joining us tonight. We do hope you've enjoyed this. It has been recorded. It is, I believe, up on YouTube, or will be shortly. It is on our Facebook page. So for, welcoming on board those who didn't get to see it tonight, you can watch it at another time. It's absolutely worth your while to do so. I'd also like to thank again the subcommittee that put this together, Chair Nina, Tim Cronin, Michael Grafton, Kurt Grenadier, Lynn Howard, and of course, Chris Matthews and Tim for the technical support on this platform, which I think has been absolutely wonderful. And to all of you who live in Weymouth, if you are a registered Democrat and you'd like to find out what the Democratic Town Committee is all about, we have a Facebook page. So go on our Facebook page, send us an email at weymouth.democrats@gmail.com. And we would love to talk with you. Our meetings are open. They are on the 4th Wednesday of every month through the month of June. I think we take July and August off. So we'd love to have your participation as well. So from the Weymouth Democratic Town Committee, thank you. This has been unbelievable.
Thanks, all.